I'm Matt Hess with River North Brewery in Denver, Colorado, and here's your craft beer and brewing tip of the week. Talking about sugar, all of our beers will have some amount of sugars on the hot side, but not too much. I would say hot side, we're not looking for more than 5 to 10% of added sugars. And in that same light, you need to be mindful of whether those sugars are very simple sugars that are fully fermentable or a more complex blend of sugars, some portion of which are not fermentable. If you go with too much dextrose right off the bat, you may end up with a harsh, overly alcoholic beer, or on the other side, potentially have a stuck fermentation. I would recommend that once you have taken an assessment of what the limitations of your brew house are, then you need to go from there and decide what amount of sugar you may need to be adding in the kettle. And if you are not able to achieve the gravities like I'm talking about, you will probably want to have some brewer's crystals on hand if you need to bump the gravity a few points. I recommend the brewer's crystals because there is some portion of unfermentable sugars in there that will basically yield the right amount of body when the beer is finished fermenting. In addition to that, since we are kind of at the extreme end of what most brew houses can handle, you need to be prepared for the fact that you may undershoot your target and you need to have some sort of sugar on hand in order to get to that target initial gravity. And that's where the brewer's crystals come in, because if you just use dextrose, you may not end up with a balanced beer. I'd like to talk a little bit about all the different kinds of sugars that can be used in order to increase your gravities during the brew process. The most common is dextrose, which is a simple, fully fermentable sugar. There's other simple sugars that you should be mindful of, like brown sugar, which can impart a great character to both stouts and barley wines. Of course, when you're talking about Belgian style beers, candy sugar comes into play, another fully fermentable sugar that you would want to use sparingly on the hot side in order to avoid that harsh, overly boozy beer when it's finished. And then beyond that, we do not typically use table sugar, although it could be used in certain beers and might provide a nice character, potentially a wine-like character to certain Belgian styles. I think that covers most of the different types of sugar that we would typically use in our brewing process. To learn more about high gravity brewing with impactful ingredients, click the link below.